first question is...
Oh, hi. Introduce yourself.
Okay.
NinjaView.
Yeah!
Number. Montreal.
Oh my god, Skip in his underwear.
Oh,
and
Everybody look that way.
someone go start at Skip Sherry's boxer shorts.
Yay. So I'm Sarala. I'm interviewing Jason Webley and Amanda Palmer in a hallway.
A hallway full of food.
With
And naked
someone
men.
changing in the background. And my first question is about Evelyn. And I was just wondering if it's going to be, if this is the only album, the only tour, or if the girls are going to continue with more work.
They're not sure.
They've been bracing and preparing for this tour for a long time, and they have talked about a lot of ideas of things to do in the future. But I think partly it's going to be, how much the world seems to want more from them, and how they feel with working more on stuff after having gone through this whole process.
They've also hit that point in tour, which I guessed would happen, but it's very typical. The romance kind of wears off, and you've been on the road, and it's kind of turns into a grind. But then they're also starting to fantasize about big. They're starting to see the possibilities now that they get what it's like to be outdoors. So they have this new fantasy that they want to do a Christmas show at Radio City Music Hall.
Okay.
With the Rockettes.
Sounds very exciting.
In a Christmas outfit.
And they also, if we tour again, they want to get let out of the van more often, they say.
Yeah.
Nope.
No.
Yeah, well that's up to Skip.
Oh, I see. Alright.
If they don't shoplift, I'll let them out more.
We shouldn't talk about that on camera.
Okay, and then my next question...
That guy was really understanding.
...is for you, Amanda, and it's that you've been a positive influence for females all over the world.
I haven't.
And, well...
I've done nothing but terrible things.
From what I hear, you have been.
Let's list a few of them. No.
And I was wondering if you think you've been a similar influence on men, or if you think you could be, or if that's something that...
if I'm to gauge from the personal feedback I get from people at shows and at signing lines and online, there's plenty of guys out there who have told me that I've inspired them or influenced them. I think, how do I want to put this? I certainly don't feel like when I sit down to write or express myself, I'm coming at it with any sort of like feminist agenda or like I must empower my sister's agenda. I'm really out there to simply express myself as fully as possible, and I think that's very gender free.
Yeah.
And I would like everyone to feel that way. I mean, I would like everyone to not feel locked into or trapped by their gender designation or their sexuality or their age or fucking anything. I just want everyone to feel excited and free.
Yeah.
And so that's what I try to transmit, and I think, that falls where it is. I think women pick up on it just because I'm a woman.
Mm-hmm.
If I were a guy saying the same thing, it might not resonate. But I don't know. It's a question you'll have to ask them.
Okay. Guys of the world. But anyway, okay, and also you've always been an advocate of like DIY culture and punk rock and sort of doing things yourself, and like you just recently let go of your label, let go of you. And I was just wondering how like being famous and fame and fortune, has that changed your perspectives at all? Those ideals?
No, that's a good one to get Jason in on too. I mean, DIY and punk rock and doing it yourself and stuff is, it's definitely, it's a state of mind. You can do everything yourself, literally. Or you can ask your friends to help, or you can ask your friends' friends to help, or you can ask a record label to help, and the layers are infinite. It doesn't, if you agree to let people help you with your own vision, it doesn't mean that you're not necessarily doing it yourself. I think the way I look at it, ultimate DIY is like you could have some visionary, crazy performance artist or sculptor contracting giant companies to create giant ships and have casts of thousands, but if they're still following their vision and not really compromising, that's still very punk rock. Likewise, you could have an indie band with a very punk rock image basically being told what to do by a giant company, and as they sit there and go, okay, well, we'll do what you say because we don't really have ideas of our own, and they may appear to be very punk rock, but actually they're full of shit. So you can have all sorts of weird combinations. It's mostly just a state of mind.
Yeah.
It's mostly just a state of like figuring out what you want to do and then doing it, and not sitting around and waiting for other people to do it for you, you know? And Jason can speak to this a lot too, because he has run his business in a much more like purely DIY fashion. He didn't use the help of a label,
Yeah.
really ever.
No, your music is a little bit newer for me, but I listen to it, and you do a lot of street performances.
Not anymore. That's
No,
how
not anymore.
That's how people first started.
Okay.
I mean, I when I first started doing my music, I just played on the street for whoever came by, and
Yeah,
because people kind of liked it, I kept playing and started doing concerts and touring around. But I've always just run my own little label. I've always done most all of my own publicity, all my own like internet work and album production and design, and book my tours and stuff. And very much like, yeah, if I can't do it myself, I get confused. I don't know quite how to.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
But that's it's a type of do it yourself, very literally.
Okay. All right, and then I have a silly question. Is that if each of you had to get a tattoo, what would you get and where?
Probably get a skin-colored tattoo, like on the inside of this arm. I don't know, for whatever reason, I've never felt. I don't know any.
I've never wanted to get a tattoo because I'm so attached to not being attached to anything. If that makes sense. That
Yeah.
I actually had a design for a tattoo. This might answer your question. When I was about 18 or 19, I made a design for a tattoo. I think it was 17 actually. A really, really personal, really beautiful tattoo that was the logo from my favorite band, and then my Scottish clown motto in the handwriting of 3 really important people in my life. And I had my boyfriend design it, and we put it on a piece of paper, and I said, I'm going to keep this for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And if I still want to get this tattoo in 5 years, I'm going to get it. And I kept it, and I pinned it above my desk everywhere I lived and everywhere I moved. And after 5 years, I thought, I don't need this on my body. I already have it inside of me. It was my Scottish clan motto is fortune assists the daring.
Okay.
And I was like, if I need it for a reminder on my body, then I'm not doing well. And also, it was at that weird turning point where tattoos were no longer actually badass because everyone was getting one. And I thought at 17, it was sort of a little bit before that wave, and I thought I was going to be really badass for getting a tattoo, but by the time I was 23, it wasn't really badass anymore.
It'd be really bad business for tattoo parlors if all tattoo parlors had that policy. Like
You go in
and you pick a design, and then you're like, okay,
You have to
and then
come back
they
in
make
5
an
years.
appointment 5 years later, and you have to come back in, and you can't change anything about your
No,
design.
it has to be the same thing.
Or nothing.
Yeah.
That
That would be bad business. But it would be very wise.
it'd be pretty amazing.
Yeah, maybe we should start that tattoo business. Now.
It'll go out
Tonight.
of business before the first person ever gets a tattoo.
We have to think about the long tail.
Yeah, we gotta get investors.
You gotta get people with tattoo ideas.
Everyone on the internet. If you'd like to see Amanda and Palmer's amazing tattoo emporium of delay,
What would we call our tattoo parlor?
later.
Oh, how about later, comma, Inc.
Later Incorporated?
Later Inc.
Yeah,
Got
Later
it,
Inc.
got it,
Yeah,
got it,
yeah.
got it, got it.
Okay.
Okay. Last question, because we're gonna run out of time.
Okay, speaking of time, if you could live in any time period, which would it be and why?
Right now. I'm a fan of now.
Yeah.
I always have this feeling that, like, in some mystical way, we all kind of weirdly chose the time we live in, and I must have picked this. I'm pretty happy.
I'd miss
with
my
life.
friends.
Yeah.
That's why you want to stay.
If they ever have time machines, and like I
If
can
we
imagine,
could all go.
No, I imagine a future with time machines where there's like sort of like time tourism, where like, but not only that, like it's like like when you go and visit Kathmandu, there's like the weird little area of Kathmandu where all the white people go and hang out because that's the place. I imagine like going and setting up these weird camps in different times where everyone like.
And with that,
Like-
we have come to the end of our 10 minutes.
Like
We
a
have to say
hostel
goodbye.
back in the 1600s.